Hello, welcome to Let's Get Down to Business with the Prince Rupert and District Chamber of Commerce. We are here to give a voice to our local business owners, entrepreneurs, and community leaders to strengthen and support our local business community and to share the wisdom and experience of longtime business leaders and the fresh ideas and experiences of new entrepreneurs. So let's get down to business.
Hi, my name is Daphne Thompson, and I am the president of the Prince Rupert and District Chamber of Commerce. And welcome to Let's Get Down to Business. Today, I have the privilege to speaking to Annie McCaughey of Immigration Station Canada. Welcome, Annie.
Thanks so much for having me, Daphne. I'm actually really excited to be here. I'm very happy I remembered the date because I booked it so far in advance because I was so excited to be here that I kept thinking I must be missing it. But here we are.
That's awesome. So please tell us a little bit more about you. How did you get into immigration? What fascinates you? Just let us get to know you a bit better.
Sure, yeah. So I actually got into immigration a little bit by accident. I come from a background of doing agriculture, trades, and restaurants. So it's a little bit of a varied background, but it really suits this industry well. And I was at that time hoping to hire somebody, not a foreign worker, which is usually how people end up in this situation. But in agriculture, especially, which is what I was doing then, there are no workers, and there were no workers, and there continue to be no workers. So I had someone apply to this position and realized they were a foreign worker and had no idea how to go about hiring them. And we, in fact, could not hire them on our farm. It wasn't the right situation. But I ended up working with a woman who really needed this person, really needed a person to fill in a spot that had been vacated by someone who had worked there for 20 years. And so I introduced the two of them, and she hired one of the best lawyers that you can hire, big city lawyer, very well-known immigration lawyer. And unfortunately, the application was denied.
Oh,
So she spent a lot of money on this fellow that I told her about and claimed would be, great for the position. And I I was very stressed that the application was denied. I felt really bad about it because she'd spent all this money. So I said, "Hey, could I have a crack at it?" So she said, "Okay, go ahead." And 10 months later, after a lot of headache and a lot of challenges with immigration, that fellow did arrive in Canada and he is a permanent resident now. It took a long time, but he is a permanent resident now. So it was a really fun, well, I wouldn't say fun. It was actually a really stressful experience, but by the end of it, it was a very satisfying experience. And that's where I got my start in immigration.
wow.
So
It
after
comes
that,
from
yeah,
a personal story and a personal need as well.
it truly does. It truly does. And that fellow and his partner are my friends to this day. That was quite a number of years ago now, but I'll never forget it because the amount of effort that goes into bringing someone to Canada is significant. And the questions that you have and the things you don't know, there are just so many. The number of hours I spent on the telephone with IRCC. And now, I every so often have to call them now and I hear that hold music and it takes me right back. They still have the same hold music. And it's kind of funny because I don't have to listen to it very often now because I know a lot of the answers at this point, having been in the business for so long.
Well,
So,
you're a
but
new member of the Prince Rupert and District Chamber of Commerce, and you've already helped quite a few business owners here. Can you talk us through the
yes.
process of what that actually looks like?
Yes, absolutely. So since I started this, it's actually changed quite a bit. And I think that's the case with everybody's business as well. COVID has changed a lot of things for us. And while we are facing labor shortages all over, and I know especially in Prince Rupert because we're so rural in Prince Rupert, um, so is the government of Canada. So every process that we do now is a much slower process. And so that's the first thing. I always like to make sure we're ready for that. But when the people get here and they're working for you, then you do tend to have somebody who has a vested interest in working for you. They are here for a reason, and so they end up being a really good part of your team. So the process, just sort of, I guess, in a nutshell, it's a two-step process to bring a foreign worker to Canada to work and to get them to Prince Rupert. And the first step is the labor market impact assessment. And you'll hear us refer to that as the LMIA. That's so we don't have to say that long name every single time. So the LMIA is the process by which we get permission to hire any foreign worker, just a foreign worker in a position in Canada. So for a long time, that process, it was sort of specific where you could get permission to hire. So for example, it was pretty easy to hire a cook because it was always known that we have a cook shortage in Canada, but it might be much more difficult to hire, say, a sales representative. Now, in a place like Prince Rupert, because it is so much more rural, we get a lot more leeway because we know it's already hard to hire. It's not like we have tons and tons of people around looking for jobs where we are. So, um, you know, we do get a bit of leeway that way. But now with the major labor shortage that we're having, plus the fact that we're rural, we have a lot more opportunity to put through some different positions that we maybe couldn't do before. So if you do have a shortage of labor and you are trying to fill it, please let me know because we might be able to put someone in that position that's going to work for you. Um, and it's not going to be we're not going to have to be as picky as we once were. It used to be sort of my expertise, agriculture and trades only, and now we can really hire in a wide range of positions because we know that they're empty and the government recognizes this and they want to fill those spots for you.
So,
So once we get, yeah, go
mm,
ahead, Daphne. Go ahead.
no, please continue. So once you get the,
Yeah, once we get permission to hire, and actually I'll back up just a little bit, that labor market impact assessment process also has a few steps involved in it. We have to advertise the position for about 4 weeks. We keep that ongoing during the application, but at least 4 weeks before we submit an application. It's done in a very specific way that is mandated by the government. We then do an application for the labor market impact assessment, including that advertisement because during that time we will have actually been trying to hire Canadians and permanent residents. However, as you know, because nobody's applying right now, we probably won't get any applicants. And so that will be part of the application that we submit is that, we've been trying to hire on these job sites for the last 4 weeks. We've received 2 applications. We called them, they didn't respond. That's very common right now. Before COVID, we would get maybe 10 applications to most sort of trades and agriculture positions, and even that is very few when you consider, um, you know, the the range of people that you might get
yeah.
applying in that batch. Whereas in an administrative assistant position, we might get 200 applicants. So that's a lot harder to justify. Now, if you get 3, I'd be surprised. So we put that application together and we show the government or Employment Social Development Canada specifically, just how few people are applying to
Mm.
our positions. They will call you and they'll have about a 10-minute conversation with you just to validate the
You,
business and the
you as
application.
the employer, right?
Yeah, they will call the employer, which will be whoever's listening to us right now.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they will just have some questions about your business. They want to make sure it's a real business. They want to make sure that you're aware that this process is going on and they want to talk to you about the people that you have maybe interviewed or not interviewed, and kind of get to know the real labor shortage that you're experiencing. And that's a process that I'll make sure that you're prepared for. You know what to expect during that call. And that you have a way to reach me during the call should you need
Mm.
some assistance or if you need some assistance after, because often if they do have questions, they'll do it via email. So we can then kind of go through it and see how things need to be answered. But as I said, these days it's pretty straightforward just because there is an apparent labor shortage. So
Mm.
once that conversation is complete with the LMIA officer, they will issue a decision letter and most likely will receive a positive decision letter, which means that it will have a positive impact on the labor market to hire a foreign worker. And then we can move forward with the work permit, and that's part 2 of this process. So the work permit is a process that is no longer employer driven. The LMIA is an employer driven process. The work permit is an employee driven process. And so when I do the work permit, I'm working more closely with the employee to make sure that their skills match what's required in the labor market impact assessment, and to make sure they actually qualify for the job that you have received permission to hire for. So that the work permit can sometimes be a little bit longer than the LMIA. Sometimes we'll have an LMIA that is processed fairly quickly and then the work permit slower, or vice versa. It really depends on who's working in the offices at that time, how organized they are, how many applications they have, and
Mm.
so on. But we try to put through really thorough applications so that they don't take, we're not getting extra time added on. Once the work permit is done and we get a positive result on that, a decision that indicates that the person can enter Canada, then they can fly here and start working for you right away.
So I know this is kind of like how long is a piece of string, but how long does this
Yes.
two-step process take? Like if I hire someone right now, usually specifically in Prince Rupert, it is urgent hires. We are short staffed. How long do I have to wait?
Yeah, so there was a time when I could give you a pretty definitive timeline.
Mm.
And then COVID occurred, and those timelines went out the window. So when you said it's about as long as a piece of string, right now, that's about right. So I always say we're going to go for sort of 6 months. It'll probably be closer to 8, and I've seen some go to a year or more.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, we have two agricultural positions that have been in processing for just over a year. So we are pushing our MP on that. It's as though they're stuck in the system, but they went right in the heat of COVID. So I don't know
Okay.
if, we've been seeing slightly faster processing times now with applications that we've been sending, but depending on the country. And so that's where it gets a little bit challenging. So for example, during COVID, Australia was processing my applications in 3 weeks. Now
Wow.
post COVID, yeah, they are 4 months, 5 months.
Wow.
So
That's quite a big difference.
yeah. Um, on the other hand, I just brought a worker in from Cuba and it was 2 weeks. I couldn't believe it. And Cuba's just started letting people out. So it really depends on the country and just how busy they are and what they're
Mm.
facing with the pandemic and lockdowns and things like that.
I
Um,
know you have,
ESTC is
yeah.
ESTC, who's processing the labor market impact assessments, they tend to be more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And I find they process usually within a month of submission, and the latest would be 60 days, so 2 months of submission. So they're pretty consistent.
Okay. So I know you have already worked with quite few of the business owners here in Prince Rupert. Most
Mm.
of them were in trades, but lately there's also been a marketing and sales division position that you've also filled that was within retail. So tell us a little bit, just what are the things that you would need from an employer's perspective to make this process easier?
So the main thing is getting the information that we need in a timely manner. And so the first step that we do is the process right from the start is that we need to send a service agreement to you. And that's a requirement because I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. So we send a service agreement for you to review. If you have questions, please call me, let me know, and we'll get through those. We then will provide you with a document checklist and an employer questionnaire, and that thing is vital. And the faster we can get that completed, the sooner we can start the advertising phase. So I find usually that takes a couple of days, but every so often we have someone where it will take a couple of months, and that's time lost because we cannot start the application until we have that information.
Mm.
So the next step is we have that recruitment phase. So we'll have a couple of documents just for you to check. They're quick checks. And again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Um, we will post the advertising and we'll be in that advertising phase. And when that completes and we're doing the application, then we still end up having a few random questions. So there can be a little bit of back and forth. We'll need some signatures from you. I try to do these in a way that is pretty easy to get done. And we should have most of the information by then. But one thing about the LMIA process is that it is extremely detailed. Um, and everything needs to be done in a timely way because all the dates all need to be close together. So if we get something from you 1 month and then something 3 months later, then some of our dates on things start to become expired, and we have to start the application again. So there's a lot of redoing, which can take more time.
Yeah.
So it's just important that we have a good communication. There's not a lot of onus on the employer. There aren't a lot of things that we need from you, but when we need them fairly quickly so that we can keep moving. And sometimes it's just I want to double check on a question. Maybe you had submitted that you have 3 employees on your payroll, but now a month's passed. So I want to quickly check that
Mm.
again. Um, so there will be things like that, or I just want to get a bit better of a feel of your business so that I can prepare the application better. So we may need to have a quick call about something, or the government may change the forms. That just happened to us about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we had to redo a lot of forms for a lot of applications that we had prepared in advance. And so again, it's just a time thing. So we've got to redo those, get new signatures, get a little bit of updated information from the business owner and so on. So that's probably the main thing, is just having a quick way to reach you.
All right. And the other thing is, um, the employers are always a little bit uh, challenged on what is the actual risk on them. What if this doesn't work? Then what do they do?
Yeah. So amazingly, there's not as much risk as you would think. Um, One of the risks is that the employee will arrive and it will not be a good fit.
Mhm.
Obviously, the risk is lessened in that they really want to be in Canada and they want to work in Canada. And so they are going to put their best foot forward. But every so often, something happens and, it's not going to work. You've given it your best shot. Maybe they were with you for 3 months and it's not going to work. I had a fellow come in not that long ago. He looked like the perfect candidate for a job. The employer had hired him. I saw all of his resume and everything, and he looked great. I had spoken with him, and I'm like, wow, you guys really lucked out. He was coming here to manage on a farm, and he would be managing several other workers. Unfortunately, he was a tyrant, just an absolute tyrant. He would not give the employees a break on a rainy day for 12 to 14 hours. So they tried speaking with him, and explaining
Right.
how things work in Canada, but it just didn't work. It was just a personality difference, it just was unlucky,
Mhm.
I guess, not a good fit, just his
So
character.
in a situation like that, can the normal labor relations thing work? It's like as if you hire
Yeah,
just a
so
normal Canadian
I'll tell you
and
what happened. And it
Mhm.
actually it worked out okay. So
Yeah.
this employer just they felt they needed to just end this relationship. We were able to place the fellow on a new farm in a position that was not managerial, so it worked for him and he's doing just fine now. They have been able to find a new worker, and all that they had to do to make this happen was they need to follow the labor laws of the province. So it's really important that you're following the BC
The
labor
labor.
laws, which you're already doing. You already know them.
Mm.
Um, check if there are any regional variances, but I don't think so when I've looked at the handbook. But again, that's not my expertise, the labor laws. So I always look that up. Even if you call
Mhm.
me with questions, I'll look that up for you.
Is
But we
there
just follow those rules.
the normal rules of getting rid of any employee should it not be a
Yep,
good fit? Okay.
exactly. Yep.
Um, so yeah, that's normal. So again, there's no real risk on the employer. Is there a
Mhm.
minimum wage that these candidates need to be paid?
Yeah, good question, Daphne. So foreign workers are regulated by the median wage that's dictated by Employment Social Development Canada. So be careful. If you Google median wage, you'll just get, random averages. You need the actual Employment Social Development Canada median wage for your province and your area. So I look up Prince Rupert specifically because it's actually in an area that has it's kind of in a gray area because it's so rural. Um, but I look it up specifically. So you really got to look for those published wages
Mm,
to make sure that you're using the correct median wage because Prince Rupert's going to vary from, say, Vancouver, right?
yeah,
It's a much different place with different wages, different pay, different everything.
and very
And so you
unique.
just need, yeah. And sometimes PR is more and sometimes it's less,
Mm,
depending on the position. You know, sometimes when we're in our little towns, we pay more for things and sometimes we pay less. It just depends on the thing. So you can't guarantee that it will be a lower wage from somewhere else. Sometimes we're paying more just to get people up to us.
yeah. Oh, all right. And then tell us some of this actual success stories that you've had here in Prince Rupert.
So we have quite a few success stories in Prince Rupert so far. And you know, I've helped a lot of people in Prince Rupert with some pretty bizarre situations that have come up. Sometimes from using um, other companies where it just wasn't a good fit and things didn't work out, and so we need to fix things or fix
Mm,
whatever's happened or put them on a different path. And sometimes it's filling one of those labor shortages in, I can think of electricians and plumbers and things like that, where that's such a hard role to fill because we
mm.
don't have those skilled tradespeople in Canada. And we especially don't have them in our rural little town. It's not like we have all these people to choose
Yeah.
from who have gone to trade school. But there are so many growing businesses that are so successful. They're run by such great people and they need workers. So we have been able to place people in these positions, complete the LMIA process, complete the work permit process, get them to PR, get them working. And that to me is a huge success story because it's helping everybody in the community.
Yeah, it definitely is. I myself is a success story of this specifically here in Prince Rupert, and truly feel like I'm making a difference and helping and being part of this community, supporting in the way that I best possibly can. And yes, working and living in Canada is definitely a very big incentive for me personally. And I believe that this is how most foreign workers feel when they do come to Canada. This is almost like a dream place. And we wouldn't do anything to jeopardize that.
Yeah, Canada is, I think, one of the most competitive countries to go to right now in the world to be able to immigrate to. There's certainly, we notice a huge desire. The number of calls that
Hmm.
happen in a day are amazing. But we're getting really good people.
And then the other thing that any employer would always want to ask is, what are the costs? I know that there is a cost that the government requests, and then of course there's a labor fee towards you. Is there anything else that there might be?
Yeah, so there are certainly professional fees and government fees associated with this. It depends on the stream that you're going through. Often we are supporting permanent residency, which means there are fewer costs associated with the process because the employee is going to be working towards their permanent residency. So there are not really a lot of outside costs. One that has been more recently introduced is that until the BC healthcare kicks in, you do need to provide 3 months of healthcare to the employee to make sure that they're covered when they first get here. Um, it's not a huge cost is the thing. And if you need recommendations of places where you can get it, I can certainly recommend them. I also will do a quick Google search and see who's providing travel health insurance for cheap, because why not, right? Like we're
Mm,
trying to keep our costs down when we do this process. And that's the thing. I'm trying to keep your costs down as much as I can too. Um, because we're all trying to live here and we're all trying to run our businesses,
yeah.
get things done. So we don't want to add things on where we don't need to. So if
And
there are ways that I can support that, I do.
how can we get hold of you?
So you can reach me on my telephone. My number is 418-264 6126. It's a really odd number because I'm a business owner and therefore a cheapskate.
I love it. I love it. And your
So
website?
ignore it. Yeah. And my website is immigrationstationcanada.com. You can reach me there. I love to text, so please feel free to text me because I love to text constantly. Uh, um, but also, it's nice to have a call the first time just so that we can get to know each other.
Mm.
You can get to know how I work, and I can get to know your business a little bit. And that, as I said, it really helps me to write your application when I know what you're all about, how you run your business. There's a difference between, you know, uh, a business in Prince Rupert versus maybe some of the large corporations that I would handle in Vancouver.
Yeah,
So I want to
definitely.
know, yeah, and there's a different way of the business being handled by ESTC because they're looking for different things in a smaller business versus a big business. So I want to get to know the business a little bit personally, and I'll Google you and see if you've got a website and see what I can find out about your business because it helps me to explain to our government what you're all about and why you really need these people because you are facing a different struggle than a large company is facing with regard to labor, and you're usually facing tighter margins than a big corp might be facing. So we need to be mindful of that, and we need to be able to show the government why this is important, keeping those things
Mm.
in mind.
Definitely. I feel like foreign workers and temporary foreign workers is definitely a solution to the labor shortages that we are facing here in Prince Rupert. It might just not be an immediate solution. You do have to wait for them a little bit. However, it is definitely a solution. And the more talent we can bring into our community, the better our community would be. The more people, the more money, the more business, the more volumes, everything increases when we have the right people in the right places.
Yeah, and keep in mind that then you're not having to hire somebody with no experience, which I know every Canadian business owner is getting to where they will hire anyone. Oh, they're fresh out of school and they kind of want to be a plumber. Okay, well, maybe we can help bring them along. You can hire
Mm.
someone who has been a plumber for 7 years. They understand the business, they understand different types of plumbing. So even though they won't do it exactly the same as we do, the learning curve is much faster and they at least have the basics down so you don't have to go over those very simple processes again.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of the successes that you've already had in Prince Rupert with businesses here as was in retail for sales and marketing. You've had some in religious work. You've had some refrigeration guys, some electricians, some plumbers. Am I missing anyone? Well, recruiters. You've even had some recruiters.
A
Um,
recruiter. Yeah.
any
So I
other
guess the
trades?
only area
Hmm?
that we haven't touched yet is agriculture. And since that's one of my specialties, I sure hope that we will at some point.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Annie, for being here. What is the one thing that you would like to leave our business community with?
Sure, yeah. So I love working with businesses and I love business as much as I love immigration, but I also love small town business. It is near and dear to my heart. I love working with the people of small towns, and I hope I understand how we work as small town people together collaboratively, you know, and that I just want you to know that that is very important to me, and that if you have any questions, please always reach out to me because I am available to you.
Well, thank you so much, Annie. This was an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Annie McCaughey from Immigration Station Canada. My name is Daphne Thompson, and thank you so much for being part of Let's Get Down to Business. I'll speak to you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Let's Get Down to Business with the Prince Rupert and District Chamber of Commerce. If you would like to be featured as a guest on a future episode, please email us at rupertchamber@gmail.com or direct message us on Facebook or Instagram at Prince Rupert Chamber.